Hi, I'm Dana from Temple of Geek, and I'm here today with Andrew Coons, Dungeon Master for the First Watch. How are you today?
I'm really good. How are you? I'm so glad to be here.
Not too bad. Thank you for asking. So glad to have you. So let's jump right into it.
Right.
So for the uninitiated, can you explain a little bit about the First Watch, its background, and how it came to be?
For sure. So the First Watch is an actual play web series. We mostly play D&D 5e. In fact, I feel like we've pretty much only played D&D 5e except for like one shot. But we'll see. We'd love to branch out at some point. But anyway, we're set in an original world called the Kingdom of Alson, which its kind of unique thing is that it's a place where the veils between the planes of existence are thin. So a thunderstorm may cause the Feywild to shift into reality real quick, or an earthquake might bring creatures from the elemental plane of fire onto this world. So there's a little bit of chaos involved in everything. But we've been around since about 2019. We just completed our first full campaign, which stretched over the course of 3 seasons, and we are starting to launch into a brand new chapter of the universe, set a little bit in the future from the first campaign, with brand new players and everything. We have tons of spin-offs and miniseries and one-shots. Kind of one of our goals is to flesh out the world as much as possible and talk about all sorts of different perspectives. So we've got a miniseries that involves kids. We've got one-shots with badass knights, all sorts of cool things. Yeah, and that's us.
Oh, that's amazing. And can you talk a little bit more about the world itself, like more about the lore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the world, the larger world is called Shal. That's the planet. The
Yes.
Kingdom of Alson is a place that is kind of situated. It's not terribly large. I kind of think of it almost like sort of like the Mexico kind of part of of North America, where there's larger countries to the north and south, and seas on either side. But this kingdom is primarily a halfling kingdom.
Hmm.
Uh, so much so that the rise to power has been the halfling king Ustaman, and that's kind of the dominant species of the world. That doesn't mean that there aren't elves and tritons and tieflings and all sorts of fun folk. But yeah, that's kind of the setting. And so our halflings are a little less hobbit and a little more badass warriors. Um,
Awesome.
but we've got, yeah, it's a world that has undergone a bit of a shift in the most recent several hundred years, because about 1,000 years ago the gods stopped talking to the holy people. And so as time passes and you don't hear from the gods, you start to wonder, were they ever really real, and are the holy men just kind of making this up to perpetuate the myth? And so as magic continues to be a part of the world, science starts to take over as the
Oh.
prevailing theory. So artificers and alchemists kind of rise to power. And then about 300 years ago, from where our story is set, the dwarves disappeared
Oh,
almost entirely. They used to be
okay.
the prevailing species, and had built grand temples and mines and all sorts of things. And then their forges just went cold, and no one really knows why. And dwarf blood still pops up from time to time, in various ways, but it's very rare, very very rare to come across a dwarf. So kind of another little mystery slash lore bit that we're playing with in our world.
I'm a little bit off track. How long did it take you to cultivate this? Like, this is amazing.
There were seeds of it at the beginning that kind of had the pieces of it, but really it's an exercise in just adding little things over time.
Mhm.
So as I've been running so many different one shots and podcasts and miniseries and the main campaign, you add a little different piece of lore each time. You add a little different idea. So certain things like the gods not talking, the dwarves not being around, and it being a primarily halfling world, that was all established at the beginning. But I'll be honest, even some of the why that wasn't established quite yet. I tend to come up with ideas and then let my players and me figure it out as we go through. But yeah, a lot of the other stuff has just kind of filled in, and even so much as like, oh, like I built out a basic pantheon, but now I've got a player who wants to worship a god of the trickster god. Well, what is my trickster god? Okay, let's figure that out real quick, sort of thing.
Wow, that's
um and
awesome.
I just how that's my style. I tend to be a little more seat of my pants, while still hopefully keeping things connected.
That's fair. Yeah. We love to see it. So I know you have some awesome shows that are coming up. What would be like a good starting off point for new viewers?
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly start all the way back at Realm Shield, our season 1, and so we've
Mhm.
got our 3 seasons: Realm Shield, Wasteland, Plague Break, and they're not long. They're 7, 11, and I think 9 episodes, or 7, yeah, 6, 11, and 7 episodes long each. So not terribly long compared to maybe some other shows, but if you're not interested in doing that, that's totally cool. I would say grab one of the miniseries or the one shots. Find something that appeals to you in style. We tend to make everything with genre in mind.
Mhm.
So if you want something that's a little more in the style of the Goonies, we've got the Half Pints, where a bunch of kids try to solve a mystery on the farm. If you want something that's a little more like an action film, check out Knights of Excessa, which is a 3-part miniseries where badass knights protect a foreign diplomat through the streets of the capital city. If you want something that's a heist, we've got the Random Heist, where three ne'er do wells try to break into a dragonborn lord's hoard. So there's a little bit of something for everybody.
Awesome. So as a dungeon master, do you have advice for those looking to get started, like building their own campaigns? Like, how did you get your start even?
Yeah, I mean, my buddy Joe and I started playing D&D together just as via, just Zoom, because
Mhm.
we couldn't find anybody else to play with. And I kind of stepped into that role and started with, pre-written Wizards of the Coast, stuff like Lost Mine of Phandelver and all that type of stuff. And that's great. And I definitely recommend, like, depending on your comfort level, certainly, and your experience, like if you're just getting into D&D as a whole for the first time,
Mhm.
find something pre-written. Doesn't have to be official content, could be somebody else's homebrew, but at least for the first few sessions, like find something where you can go back to a source material and go, okay, that's how it should be done. Over
Mhm.
time, you'll develop your own homebrew rules and your own style and your own home rulings, but that's kind of hard to do completely from scratch. So I guess my biggest advice would be, like, know your own way of working.
Okay.
Know whether you are someone who likes to map everything out first, or if you're okay flying by the seat of your pants. Know how much you need. And the best way I could equate it is think back to when you had to give public speeches in, like, school.
Yeah.
What was your style of preparation for that? Because I find myself being very similar to that, where I don't write everything out word for word. I make bullet points and then I riff in between those. And so that's how I did public speaking. That's how I do DMing. And that for me has been a way that's worked.
Awesome. Okay. And for the shows that are coming up, can you tease a little bit of what's coming?
Oh, yeah, we've got some fun stuff. We're currently in the middle of our second season of our podcast, The Inn at the Edge of Greenwood. So if you
Mhm.
want, again, genre, if you want something that's a little more cozy, just kind of storytelling by the fireside, that's a good
Mhm.
one to look at. So we're in the middle of that, which is super exciting, and episodes are coming out every other Friday. But as far as brand new stuff coming up,
Mhm.
we premiere, it'll be after this or before this comes out,
Mhm.
but we premiere Showdown at Crispin Hills, a new Western themed miniseries,
Mhm.
on the 29th of March.
Yes.
And that's a 4-part thing.
Mhm.
And then our brand new campaign 2, is going to start premiering in May. And that is going to be, we don't actually have an episode cap on that yet. We're going to see how long it should go for, as we record, before we cap that out. But it's a brand new story, brand new cast, brand new characters. And again, if you're looking for a jumping in point, with the first watch, that'll be a great spot. Showdown at Crispin Hills, and then that, because we're kind of wiping the slate clean a little bit as far
Mhm.
as our timeline, and starting a little bit in the future with brand new stuff.
Awesome. Sounds so exciting. And where can we find you on the internet?
Yeah, YouTube is where all our content is hosted. So please go, subscribe and turn on that notification bell, on YouTube. So that's, the First Watch Show is our handle after YouTube/C. And then on other social medias, on Twitter and Instagram, we're at First Watch Show. And then, of course, you can find our podcast, both of the Inn at the Edge of Greenwood and our main show. We do put those episodes out in podcast format. You can find those pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with me today. And
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
awesome. And you can find this interview and so much more on templeofgeek.com. Take care.